Chicken there for this special occasion. So I'd like to introduce our special guest for this evening. His name's Richard Yap, and he's been Boys Brigade for a long time, although he has not recently, but he was a captain of Boys Brigade in Sindel, Boys Brigade, and at the time of his captaincy it was the largest brigade in Victoria. And more particularly, the seniors program that he was running was leading edge, and is really the seniors program that you run now is sort of based on what Sindel was doing in terms of the squad times and the activities. He was also interested in leadership development, and he went over to New Zealand to see what they were doing and liked what he saw. So he came back here and developed the leadership development courses in Victoria. Back in 1987, we had our first course, which Richard was the director, and some of the things that you do, they did then, we do right now, like the challenge and the heights and various other things. So he was instrumental in starting leadership in Victoria, and not only Victoria but also Australia as well. So Queensland got the idea and started their program. And now the leadership development courses are institutionalised in Boys Brigade that you need to, if you do the course, it does go towards your Queen's Badge. So he was the director when I was a boy here, and certainly that course for me was a major impact in my life. And with these, Richard, by leading that, has helped me in my life and to where I am now. So he has a few words to say about this course and for the particular groups of team leadership and personal development. So I'd like to welcome Richard to give us a few words and to speak to us. So thank you, Richard.
Gentlemen, young men, squad facilitators, staff. It is my privilege to be here tonight. And driving here was like going down memory lane. It was 20 years since I was last here, in this hall, doing this. That's a long time. And when you reflect back through the lens of history, it's actually very useful because history can teach you and show you many things. And I want to begin my address to each and every one of you with a profound quote with which I will finish this talk. And it goes like this: 100 years from now, it will not matter the house you lived in, the car you drove, or the size of your bank account and assets. But the world may be a better place because you were important in the life of a child. That is a biblical principle running all the way back from the new church and the way Jesus started his ministry. And that is investing in growing people. When you invest and grow people in Christ, there is no greater work than that. And when you do that and honor it by committing it to the Lord, and you just let go of what you want and allow the Spirit to move and work, then something magical happens. A profound legacy gets birth, grows, takes root, and causes change in the land and community. This course here has been going 27 years by my calculation. And over that period in time, it has fed, enthused, encouraged leaders and companies have benefited over the years. Each and every single company running today that is strong, vibrant, would have leaders that would have come from here. But more often than that, what this course does for each and every one of you is to give you a powerful platform of growth. Because leadership is about growth. You don't get growth without challenge. You don't get growth without expanding your thinking. You don't get growth without changing some of your paradigms and beliefs. And you don't get growth without knowing and discovering a little more of yourself. Through the course of this talk, I'd like to tell you about two worlds. And two worlds run through multiple dimensions. The first world is the world you all know, the world you live in. The three-dimensional world of time and space. You get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom, do what you do, put on your clothes, have breakfast, go to school. Your parents' outer world is a little different because they go to work, they go earn an income to pay for the house and the food, put you guys through school, etc. And the whole of society and our culture runs on material exchanges in and out. That's your outer world. Your outer world is what is in your conscious mind. So, as you are aware of your thoughts, what's going on, who's saying what to you, the responses that you have to different situations, that is your outer world. But just as there is an outer world, there is an inner world. Scripture talks about that. The inner world where you commune with the Spirit. The inner world where you get in touch with God. The inner world where you get to know your spirit. The problem is, you are not taught or encouraged to discover and know your inner world. You are taught at the head level how to do it. How do you get in your inner world? You go and pray. But the catch is this. When you pray in your head, you don't go into your inner world. To go into your inner world, you have to get out of your head. To get out of your head, you have to invoke the shortest verse in the Bible and the most profound, which is found in Psalm 46:10. And that says, "Be still and know that I'm God." Which is why in PD you do the 3-day solo. Now, I will talk to PDs about that a little later because I have some gems of wisdom for you on that. But back to all of you. A book I read in the 1980s that did a lot for me was a book written by a Jesuit priest called John Powell. And its title was this: "Why am I afraid to tell you who I am?" A very profound question. And the answer is this: I'm afraid to tell you who I am because that is all I've got. And if you don't like who I am, I have no place to go. So people are afraid of being authentic, of sharing what's really deep in their soul. And that runs right through the fabric of society. And many ills and issues and problems stem from the fear of rejection. But where there is love, there is no fear. So when you, as a child of God, each and every one of you, know that you are a child of God, not just think you are a child of God. Because it is easy to just think you are a child of God because that's what you are told and what you read in the Bible. There's a process that needs to happen with all these principles and things that you learn. It needs to flow into 3 stages. The stages it needs to flow through are first in your mind, where you think about it. Then it goes into your heart. Your heart is where your feelings, your will, and your intellect is there, your will. Then from there, it needs to go into your spirit. But most times, we are not aware of our spirit. It's just there. You need to know how to look. But you cannot see, feel, experience your spirit unless you be still and know that I'm God. As in Psalm 46:10. And that's why solos are such a powerful part of the program. And the 3-day solo is not an easy exercise. But it is amazing. Now, who are you? That is a profound question. Who are you? What are you doing here? Where are you going? When you can answer those 3 questions, you then have identity, you have purpose, and you have direction. God does not call you to cruise through life. He is not interested in your comfort. God is not interested in your comfort. God is interested in your character. Because He's interested in your character, you get challenges. And the best way to learn about challenges is an environment like this. There is no better way to encounter, embrace challenges in an environment like this, when you can actually debrief, have loving officers care for you, pick you up in the right place. So character is what is important. So when you look at the object of the Boys Brigade, the advancement of Christ's kingdom among boys, the promotion of the habits of obedience, discipline, self-respect, and all that tends towards a true different Christian manliness, equals character. And a good mate of mine, his name's Mark McCrindle. He's in Sydney, New South Wales. He runs the McCrindle Foundation and does research on generational trends. And what he says is this: the problem with young people today is that they major on competence, skills, being able to do things, and they lack character. Character is who you are. Character is what you do when nobody's watching. Character is your integrity. Character is about you following the ways of the Lord. In honesty, in truth, in diligence, in initiative, and doing the right things, because it is right to do the right things. So honor and respect are very big in this. Today we have a world that's devoid of honor and respect. And so these principles are going to make the difference for all of you. So the first thing is, who are you? You are a child of God. God has His hand upon you. And your response is to, first of all, think about it, let it sift through, get it in your heart to understand it, and then you know it in your spirit. And when you are there, no matter what anybody says and does to you, you will not feel any rejection. Because perfect love casts out all fear. Number 1. Number 2, who are you? You are a light. You are a light of the kingdom of God. And a light is not meant to be covered up and not seen. You are meant to be there, shining your light in the world, in your place, in your way. And each of you have a specific expression of that light. And that expression of that light must go forth, because that is how the light covers the darkness in the world. We are in accelerating times. the pace of change is accelerating. And physics can actually validate the acceleration of time. For example, the Earth a long time ago vibrated at the Schumann frequency of 7.83 Hertz. It's actually increasing. And some people say it's running at 12 Hertz, some people say it's running at 10. I'm not sure what to believe, except to know that it's been increasing. So, what does that mean? It means today, 24 hours feels like a 16-hour day 50 years ago, in terms of the pace of change. Talking about change, all of you know what this is, don't you? Yeah? This has just celebrated its 3rd anniversary, the iPad. This has had an incredible impact on the world in terms of how it's changed the way people use information, communicate, and interact with each other and all sorts of things. Now, this is my 2nd iPad. It's a fantastic device. Love it. I didn't buy number 1 because it wasn't quite right yet. Now, I've got a couple of thousand books in here, simply because you can have that. Why am I bringing this up? Because in the future, everything's going digital. And that's one of the trends each and every one of you have to come to grips with. So that's really important. And to know who you are, what your passions are, is really important for these trends, because you can have an amazing life when you can tap into your passions and have that as a driver for the future in terms of where you go and what you do. The old paradigm, the old model, which is you go to school, you go to uni, you get the marks you need, you get this piece of paper that says you have a degree, you go apply for a job, you go work for a company, and then you stay in that company until you retire. That is what's called industrial age paradigm. So in the industrial age, companies and people operated like that. Today we've gone way past that. We're now in the digital information age, which means that you go and work in a company. If you're there 3 years, that is a long time. So to stay there 30 years is unthinkable. Because if you stay 30 years in a company, you have become a dinosaur. It doesn't work like that. So the future for each and every one of you is one of 2 polarities. It can either be very exciting or very challenging. Which one do you want? Which one do you choose? Very exciting means that there's all these opportunities out there. Do you know that today, in 2013, it is easier to start a global company rather than a local? 20 years ago, that was unthinkable. It's easier to start a global company than a local one today. On the internet. The fastest way to become a millionaire is to write an app. An app for this, an app for your phone. That's the fastest way to become a millionaire. The youngest billionaire in the world that got there the fastest time is who? That's right. The founder of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. So digital is where it's going. So for each of you, learn about technology and understand how to use it for you. You don't need to be a nerd and a geek. You just need to understand some of these principles. So they're trends. And that's about who you are. Now, each and every one of you is a huge treasure of potential. So I can look at each and every one of you, spend a bit of time, and I can unpack the potential that you have there. And the question is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? Do you all know the parable of the talents? Each of us are given a certain amount, and it's our responsibility to invest it and to multiply it and to grow it. And the amazing thing is that when you do that, magic happens. Now I'm just going to digress a little bit of history. What is leadership? Leadership is 3 I's. The first I is to influence. So you have to influence as a leader. How do you influence? The first thing to do is to build rapport and to gain respect. And you don't do that by telling. You do that by being. Then the next I is to inspire. So once you influence, you can change thinking. Once you inspire, you change motivation. And to inspire requires you to have a number of tools. How do you inspire someone? You get them to think, you get them to see, and then there's a whole lot of tools that you can learn through this course here to inspire people. And the best way you inspire people is by example. Then the third I is to implement. There's no point influencing and inspiring people and you've got a happy chappy club and everyone feels great, but nothing happens. So then you have to implement. And a leader knows how to implement strategies, how to make things happen. And this is where teamwork comes into it. Teamwork is extremely important in terms of learning. And when you learn about teamwork, it is incredibly valuable because most people out there do not know how to work as a team. The skills of teamwork are going downhill. So if employers knew what each of you young men learned through this course, they would beat a path to your door. It would be profound. Now, just a bit of history. 1987, we started down here. And it was a cold winter's day. There was only the officers' hut there in terms of accommodation, nothing else. It was only for 4 days because it was the first pilot. And in that time, I can't remember how many we had, whether it was 12 or 16. But we had a good course and it was tough because you're just doing things for the first time. Then things developed. The next year it went to 5 days. The year after, in 1989, it went to a full 7 days of TL. Only TL in those days. Then 1990, first PD happened, first solo. Then we had that in 91, 92, 93, we had growth partners, which I call stage 3 in those days. And we had everything together here, and that was an awesome year. There's so many stories we can tell you about that. Now, in those days we had an adjutant who was infamous. His name was Tim Stutchbury. He had a way of getting things done. Poker face, very unfriendly, you know, short, sharp commands to boys, and he had a most innovative way of waking you up in the morning. And the most infamous way that he woke up some boys was in the cabin over there. See one of those big pots for soup? He would take one of those big pots and the boys would be just snoring away, you know, flaked out in bed. He'd take one of those big pots, I don't know where he got these from, he got some firecrackers. And he lit them, put them in the pot, shut the lid, and off they went. That was very effective in waking them up. It was very funny too. So, you know, the officers were outside the cabin just watching with interest. We had a lot of fun. And that's part of the experience, fun. Make sure you do not cut fun out of your life. At my age, I have a lot of fun. I ride motorbikes. And I'm old enough to join the Ulysses Motorcycle Club. I love their motto. Their motto says this: grow old disgracefully. Not gracefully, just gracefully. So I plan to be a hoon until I go, in a nice way. It's a bit illegal to drop burnouts anymore, and not socially acceptable. So there's a lot of history that they've gone in here. I can tell lots of stories about people. I had dinner with Andrew Chua last night, who's well known to most of you. Andrew was 15 years old in 1984 when I first met him. He came here to the first program in 1987. We did senior LDC together, senior boys. We went through a lot together. You know, for me, Andrew was somebody I put a lot of time mentoring. And last night across the dinner table, he looked at me and said, and he gave me permission to share this with all of you, you have been the greatest inspiration in my life, and the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing in ministry is because of your example. So each one of you have a responsibility to pass it on. As the officers here have loved you, it is your responsibility to pass it on to others. It doesn't have to be Boys Brigade. It could be in any expression for you that you like. Now let me just address each of you. TL, team leadership. The three groups I see there. What this course is to each of you is to lose yourself first, because you have to separate yourself as an individual and then come together and meld as one in a team. That's a tough process, but as you go through, it's very rewarding. And I'm sure some of the squad times that you've shared, when you can look each other in the eye and say it as it really is from here, pretty powerful stuff. Each of you this week would have learned an enormous amount of stuff. It will require you to be dedicated to put it in practice in your life. Because from my experience, 80% of you will go away, and after 2 months, nobody will see any evidence of what you've learned here. And if that happens, and you might have an officer or somebody else say, huh, look at you, you came to TL leadership, what have you got to show for yourself? Nothing. Do not let anybody ever heap that judgment upon you. Because whatever happens to you is actually okay. Because you build a platform of growth from which you can move on. The next year when you guys come back and do PD, it'll take less than 3 hours for you to switch back to exactly where you left here. No exceptions. So whatever you learn here is not lost. Never is. It's always there. Under the right environment, you can bring it out again. The 3 things I encourage each of you to do is, number 1, right? Look at your course material from time to time. Number 2, have your own quiet time and build your spiritual disciplines into your routine. Learn to sit in nature, because nature is the bridge between man and God. Because the Spirit of God is found through nature. And when you go into prayer and meditation in nature, that is when you encounter God. Did you know that Jesus spent 20% of his waking hours out in the wilderness, not in buildings, in the wilderness? There's a study done that chronicled that. So the first thing is, look at your material. The second thing is, talk to your squad members. Email, Facebook, get together, go and have some fun together. Encourage each other. When you are down, you need someone to talk to that can relate to where you've been, right? Go connect with your squad facilitators, your squaddies that are here to help you. They're not going to cut you off after this. They're more than willing to talk to you. After all, this is a family, a Christian brotherhood that is formed here that's powerful. The third thing is, when you go back, is to honor your parents and look at them from different eyes in terms of how they love you and they do their best for you. And even though they may do something that pisses you off, they can't help themselves and they do it because they love you. And so there's different ways of responding to them than just reacting and going, "Arr!" So implement some of these principles into your family. Now I remember one course, one boy from Mitchell went home. He sat his parents down on the kitchen table and said, "Mom, Dad, we learned all this at leadership, and I want to tell you about the 5 levels of communication. And we are not communicating at gut level, and we as a family should communicate at gut level, and this is what we should do." The parents nearly fell off the chair. The mother rang me up the next day and said, "What have you done to him? I don't recognize what's come in the door." She was wrapped, but I had to explain to her what went on. So go home and teach your parents. And have fun doing it. And do it in a nice, honoring way. You see, so practice some of these principles. And use your family as guinea pigs. They're safe. So, that's TL. PD. The 3-day solo, at this point in time, is the most significant spiritual experience of your life. And you have learned something profound. That when you be still, and you pray, and you allow yourself to immerse in the environment, and you allow God to speak to you, it is profound. The process of solo goes like this. The first day is uncomfortable because you're sitting there for all this time. You've got nothing to do. Nothing to do. The mind hates nothing to do. Your brain's going crazy. Where's my iPhone? Where's my computer? Where's my game that I'm playing, and so on? And your brain just rattles away. But when you sit with the process and you allow that to all settle down, the first day is just tuning out of the outer world that fills your head. That's the first day. The second day is when you merge with the environment around. You get to flow with what's going around, you know, the trees, the bushes, the environment, any wildlife that comes in. So the second day, when you allow yourself to just be at one with the environment, that is then you are connected to the earth and to the cosmos. The third day is when the magic happens. Now, if some of you didn't experience that, and you're still stuck in your head, it's okay. Because every experience is unique, it's different. And something that none of you should ever do is make comparisons with your experience with somebody else's. Do not compare your experience with anybody else's. It's irrelevant. Because you then get into judgment. When you get into judgment, you cut out the possibility of God working in you. So the 3-day solo, reflect upon that. And I now challenge each and one of you, PDs, that sometime in the future you will take the initiative to go and do your own 3-day solo. Better still, come back and do growth partners. That'll help. Because my experience has been hardly any PD graduates actually go out and do 3-day solos again. Because it's not something we do in our normal lifestyle. So for each of you, after you've done TL and PD, you have been able to integrate a lot more of this stuff in your life. And what I encourage you to do is now take the step in leadership. Be a leader. Be the change in your life wherever you are around. Be more proactive at home, in your Boys Brigade, in your church, in whatever you're doing. Exercise initiative, and then stand and take courage on issues and speak your truth. Speak the truth of God rather than letting things go. And have the courage and conviction to do that. Journaling is an amazing skill. So do that regularly. Do that in your quiet time. Read the scriptures and journal. And learn to dream. Dream dreams. Ask questions like, how can this be? Rather than, it cannot, how can this be? And when Growth Partners is available, go and do that, because that's another level again. Because you learn about really committing yourself to somebody else and being accountable and helping each other grow together. It's a whole dimension. Our squad facilitators, men, I commend you for your service, for your love. What I have to say to you is this: you will never know until years down the track what your love has done in this week in these young men. I had no idea in 1993 when Brian was doing PD that 20 years down the track I would be sitting here next to him and he would be standing, he would be filling this place. I had no idea. So gentlemen, the young men that you care for, you have no idea what can be and where they can be. But one day, the investment that you make into them will bear fruit and bear fruit abundantly, and you may be blessed to see some of that. So know that your work and your love is blessed and anointed, and the Lord will bring forth its fruit. The SMART team, your labor of love, has not gone unnoticed. It will always be there as a mark of the success and the backbone of the engine that runs this whole program. So without you, all this wouldn't happen. And know that the labor of love will always be rewarded in some way. And my last word is to Brian here: keep going on. You're doing a fabulous job. Thank you, and I encourage you to continue growing.
And Richard will stay around for a short bit afterwards, so you can help and have a chat with him. But in the meantime, dessert is coming out now, so that.